We're live, and I'm gonna put you on mute.
I can't hear anybody.
You ain't supposed to hear. We're on mute right now.
Okay, I hear you now, though.
Okay, good. So we are live, and so we're waiting for two other people. Okay.
Okay.
And they're getting ready to jump in. All right. Okay, we ain't gonna be looking crazy on Facebook. We off from mute. I'm gonna go ahead. We just gonna go ahead and get started, okay? Because my topic, y'all hear me?
Yes.
My topic is geared towards you, right? It's geared toward the black man. So we got two powerful black men on, and I'm so glad that y'all came on again. Thank you, Prophet Parker and Elder Hood. Thank you so much. Um, I was looking at Parker, your page the other day, and your page, we had a video up. I don't know what happened to the video. We had about 1,000 views. Somebody deleted it. I have no idea what happened to the video. But that's why I put that YouTube one up. Thank God we had it saved in YouTube. But you said on your page, you said that, I was on this show and we was talking about American history and stuff like that. But we just talked about the basic part of it. We didn't go deep into it. And so you said we didn't go heavy. And so what do heavy look like? What was you looking to get out of that conversation? Because I know our history, right? But I don't want to I know how blacks have been persecuted. I'm black. You know what I'm saying? See me, I'm black. I'm a black sister. And 4 weeks ago, I really can't even get into it, but I did saw a dumb thing and I got arrested, right? I did something real stupid, but the way the police handled me was just really unnecessary, right? So I had to make a complaint with the deputies and get all the people involved. And so the deputy he looked at me and said, well, We have good cops, we have bad cops. What you did was silly, but it wasn't worth an arrest. Okay, it could have been a warning. Um, we all do dumb things, right, Parker? Before you dive in, we do stupid stuff like we forget to renew our license, right? We forget to do our registration. We do some dumb and silly stuff, but you don't deserve to be treated like a dog. I never resisted arrest. I was very professional. Didn't curse. I didn't yell. I didn't do anything. I was really, really pleasant. And had bruises on me the way he grabbed me, bruises on my arms. The handcuffs were so tight that literally, if they would have stayed on just a little bit longer, you'd have seen blood seeping out of my skin. And I kept asking him to please loosen the handcuffs. I'm like, I'm not a criminal. I don't have a record. But it seemed like he made them more tighter. All right. But anyway, let's just dive into this. So I want everybody to know I'm a sister, but one thing you're not going to get me into, I'm not going to be debating over this stuff because we all need to get it right, right? We all, but we know the history of the Black man. But go ahead and tell me what that looks like, Parker, when you said you wanted to get heavy with this.
I honestly don't even recall saying that, but what comes to mind immediately when you make that statement is the consideration of what it feels like to experience these things for us. And I think we don't really talk so much about it. I mean, we talk about the things that are important, such as how things should change. What are some of the strategies that we can employ to go about making those changes, how we can maybe work together, et cetera, et cetera. But I think one of the things that I really aspire to is to get to a place of understanding with everybody else, such that, and I was just thinking about this earlier today, that we would have enough compassion to hear their hearts, and that they would have enough compassion to open their hearts to hear us. Because if they continue to see us like nothing but an animal, just like you just described and like we kind of touched on last week, then these things will never really change. And what you'll continue to see is situations like what they had in Atlanta, where there were several police officers who quit rather than submit themselves to changes in the system. And what that says to me, you would much rather continue doing what you're doing the way you're doing it, as if it's perfectly fine, than allow some systemic changes to be made and how you do your job. Now, listen, even if you want to spin the wheel and say, okay, let's take it something other than policing. Let's say it's being a doctor. Every real profession goes through changes. Every couple of years they learn new things, new techniques are employed. Different aspects of ways that you can do what you do better come out all the time. People research all different professions all the time, and they develop new ways to employ what they do. So why is it that the way that police do what they do is something that has to remain the same and never goes through any metamorphosis whatsoever? And so I think what I probably meant when I said get heavy into it, I really want to get and dig down into the emotional trauma that takes place in the heart of a man who is put in a situation where he feels unsafe, particularly with the people who are pledged to make him feel safe. What do you do when the person who's supposed to feed you is the one who makes sure you don't eat? It's like you say that you're there specifically for this purpose, and then you do everything in your power to withhold the very thing from me that you say that you're there to provide. And that does something to the mind of a man. It is trauma to the heart of a man. It sends his emotions on a tirade. So no wonder oftentimes these things get out of control. And it's not that we don't have the ability to comprehend what it means to comply to the orders of an officer. The issue is when you do what you do, it sends the internal me into a space that I never intended to be.
Right.
And then you expect me to be able to control all of the emotions that come up when you go against the very thing that you say that you're here to do and be. You live against your identity
True.
and do everything against what your badge represents, but you expect me to keep my composure.
Right.
So that's
Right.
I would like to talk more about that.
Right. Okay,
With them
Quincy.
too. Yeah.
Quincy, go ahead and chime in because this.
Yeah.
I mean, because it's very troubling that they target Black men. I need to know why the target toward Black men. Why are they so fearful toward the Black man? And this has been years of abuse. All right. I mean, you want to get down and dirty how they treated us and threw us out of the boats into the water, how they threw us in the water with alligators and I mean, the lynchings are still going on. No one's talking about that. 6 went from what 3 to 6 this week. Go ahead, chime in on it.
Yeah, it's several strange killings that have occurred this week, and I will call them killings and not suicides. I don't recall a time where Black people committed suicide by hanging themselves from a tree in a public location.
Never.
As it relates to how police see Black men, I think the media has a large portrayal to that effect. While everyone sins, everyone does wrong, somehow the media highlights the wrongs and the ills of Black people, in particular, the Black male. And like Brother Now Parker said, the only thing that will change their action toward us is seeing us as human beings. You know, scholars throw around this term, the imago Dei, the image of God. If they see us as having the image of God, if they see us as human beings, then they will treat us as human beings. As long as they don't see us as human beings, as long as they see us as animals, as long as they see us as people who seemingly have no control, they will treat us as that. And again, I agree wholeheartedly with what Niall said.
Me too.
They are the people who are trained to deal with the public.
Supposedly.
If you are trained, you're supposed to be. If you are trained to deal with the public, you don't have any emotional maturity about you or any emotional stability about you. There's no telling how you're going to deal with the public. And I think that's the main issue. They have to see us in a different light. There's a reason that they treat white suspects differently than they treat Black suspects. They treat white people who resist differently than they treat Black people who resist. But somehow you hear the stories about the white person who resisted, grabbed tasers, but didn't get shot, had cops running, but never got shot or tased, when Black people are being killed by being shot in the back. So there's a clear difference in how they see us, thus relating to how they treat us. Hopefully.
So this thing about and I want to thank you for sharing that. Thank you guys for sharing that. Y'all awesome. The funding. Now I heard about somewhere in my reading, Minnesota, they're doing away with the police department, and I guess that they're calling that defunding it. Do you think that's a good idea to have no police department? I understand about defunding it and taking our money and use it for education purposes. But to remove a whole police department, I'm not totally in agreement with that. What do you think, Parker, Prophet Parker?
Actually, well, honestly, brother Parker's fine. Now it's fine. Parker's fine.
Okay, all
Uh,
right. I just want to be,
um,
last week I was a little
thank
heated with all this stuff, and I didn't even give you your props. I said, "Oh God!" I looked over the video. I said, "Oh God!" I had no etiquettes, but hey, I know how to respect titles and positions. I do. So I
yeah,
want to let that be
no
known.
problem.
Prophet Parker,
No,
yeah.
no, no problem at all.
Okay.
Actually, I, I, I will answer that, but if I could just go back to what my brother was saying, and just chime in on something as he was talking. So it's like my mind just sparks were just going off.
Mhm,
And one of
mhm,
the things I want to consider, back to your previous question, why do they, treat us so differently? I think one of the main issues for me is, and I want to just cut a little deeper. It boils down to fear
Yeah, yeah.
of, for me, power, fear of the power and the strength of what a black man represents. And I'm going to bear that out by saying this: if they didn't think we had a power, there would be no need to control it. You don't
okay.
ever exert energy to grip something that you feel, if it got out of control, could destroy something else. For instance, if your car had no power to destroy another person or property, you wouldn't worry about the wheel.
Right,
You keep it under grip at all times
right.
because of its potential to do anything if you take your hand off of it. Okay?
Mhm,
There is no question whatsoever about the ingenuity of black people, the inventiveness of black people.
Right, right.
Most of what keeps our society and civilization together in the United States of America are things that were invented by us.
Yep.
Everything you see all over the place, our
that's right.
ability to talk on a cell phone, our ability to have an operational GPS system,
Yep. Yep.
traffic lights. I
Yep.
mean, on and on and on. Air
100% right.
conditioning,
100% right.
refrigerate,
Yes,
on and on.
inventors.
So it's like, one thing about Caucasian people, and I don't like to typecast everyone, but they have this thing about dominion,
Yep.
and they don't really create much as a holistic people. They're not really inventive like us. And I'm going somewhere with this. I'm not, trying to say they don't have anything. We have everything. I'm not making that statement. What
Right.
I
I
am
we get it.
saying,
We get
that
it. We get it.
that's not
Well, you know
that
what? We
that
can
is
just do
not
this.
their
I'm gonna tell you what you can say. You can say white supremacists. I mean, we safe there because not
okay.
all whites. We just say white supremacists because they
True,
hate
true.
blacks.
But I was considering not just the three of us that are on this live, but the people who may be watching. And I don't want anyone who is watching us to get the wrong idea. I want them
That's
to
right.
understand that our thinking is holistic,
That's right.
and that we're not, trying to split folks down the middle, all of that. Anyway, so all of that to say, that is not their strong suit necessarily. It is ours. And so, because that's the case, their issue is generally having dominion. This is why in the United States, the way they came over here from Europe to overtake and to have dominion was to use force. That has not changed, and they do the same thing today. Any people they want to subjugate, anybody they want to enforce democracy on, force it on, they use military force to go do it. It isn't any different today. No wonder the police act like the military on domestic soil against us, because they want the control, just like they do when they go over to Iraq, Saudi Arabia, all of those Middle Eastern countries, because they want control of what makes them so strong and financially powerful, which is the oil. They want control over the society, and they want to force on them who we are. And the reason that there's a fight is they're saying, we don't believe like you. We don't want to be that. And we don't want to accept that. So they continue to fight, and the fight doesn't end. Now we're at the stage where we're rising up to fight. And we're saying the way in which you are going about trying to keep us subjugated, we're not willing to tolerate that anymore. The point that I'm trying to get to in saying all of that is this: I really wish that there will come a time when the Lord will really intercede and open the hearts of everybody to hear each other and to accept the fact that we have a completely different set of strengths and weaknesses, and we're not all going to be the same. Black people have the strengths, the set of strengths that made them want us here, that made them desire us, that made them, in fact, need us.
That's good.
That
That is good. That's
that
true.
made them, out of all the people in the world
That's
that they
right.
could try to enslave, they wanted us.
They wanted us because they knew that we were
And
strong. That's right.
absolutely. And not only that, that we had the intellect to go to an entirely different country, learn a whole new language, basically take on someone else's identity and do all their work for free and make it possible for them to be who they wanted to be and realize their own, what they believed was their destiny, which in turn means it would have been impossible for them to do what they've done in this country without us. These were a lazy people. If they were not lazy, they would not have needed free labor.
Right.
This is only an economic miracle because of us.
Right.
So I'm saying, if you give us our due and you recognize our strengths and we accept your strengths and your weaknesses, then we can develop just like friends develop. The best types of relationships are people who are not the same. I don't do any good joining up with people who have the same strengths and weaknesses as I do. Because when I'm weak in an area and I can't lean on you, what good are you doing in my life?
Right.
You're not doing me any good. People oftentimes get together because, we have everything in common. That's not what you need. You need somebody who's strong where you are not. So I can understand why they would want us. But I think it's time that they try to present some semblance of a reason why we should want them. And then let us start to some
Right.
you
Right.
know what I'm saying? And
Right.
stop trying to control this thing, because we don't need to be controlled. We need to be let loose to live. We have already proven, last thing I'll say on that, we have proven as a people that we can enhance everything we touch. This has been
Whoa.
proven.
That's right.
This is what we do. We make everything we touch great. Not
That's
only
true.
did they use us as slaves, but we became wrestlers, athletes, and everything else. They paid their money to watch us be great.
Right.
Everything they do with their money, basically, when it comes to their entertainment, because we're the best at everything, they give their money to watch us be great. And even in all of that, they seek to be in all of the necessary positions to be in control of us, whether it's music, sports, entertainment, and television, movies. They're in all the upper echelon positions, even though we're the ones doing all the work. Even that is a way of slavery.
Of
None
course.
of it really changed. The only difference is we're not out in the fields anymore. But in every other area, we're still slaves. To say nothing of the prison industrial complex,
Right.
That's
which
right.
back to what you were saying about the way you were treated and getting arrested and how they will trump up charges. Of course they will, because that's the new enslavement. They'll get you in to work for 10 cents an hour, basically free labor, and give you 15 years for something that they give somebody Caucasian a year for.
And
And
Prophet, let me jump in that, because the fact they have it on recording, this sheriff said, quote, "I'm going to do everything in my power to mess you up." Like, why? Like, why you want to mess me up? I don't even know you. I haven't done anything to you. Why you want to mess me up? And I think that is so sad. And because that's what they have been trying to do to the black man for years. I love that message that oh my God, what's the man with the L. Sharpton? He said he preached about the knee on the black man neck.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? Go ahead and chime in, Elder Hood.
Yeah.
I'll call you.
You can just call me Quincy. It's all good.
Right.
A lot of people just say Q, but you just call me, it's all good. Well, Niles didn't leave much to say. My goodness.
He got it out.
Let me,
He
let
got
me
it.
just, let me just say this real quick about his comment. He dropped so many historical
He did.
nuggets
He did. It was
real
awesome.
quick, like from from black people and our ability to invent, from our ability to entertain, even during slavery times, when the sport of
Absolutely.
course then was wrestling or wrestling another slave or boxing another slave to
Right.
death. And you actually see this highlighted in a book by William Roden called The $40 Million Slave, where he highlights that because we are not in a lot of ownership positions, it's almost as if, like Niall said, we are still slaves. Because ultimately we can only do what the team owner says that we're able to do. And even in music, uh, I grew up listening to a lot of hip hop, and hip hop music was totally different when I was a child,
Mm-hmm.
comparatively speaking to what it is now. The only difference is who are owning the record labels now. So you no longer have what people would consider conscious rap, even though it doesn't support scripture, but it supports black people. So you no longer have rap that supports black people. Now you have rap that exposes black people. You no
Mm.
longer have music that exposes what we're talking about, the need for cops to be retrained, to be better trained, and to highlight the inequities in law enforcement. We no longer have that type of music. As it relates to defunding police, I'm in agreement with defunding police.
Mhm.
I'm not in agreement with removing um, uh, a police force from a particular locale. I'm
Mhm.
totally in agreement from moving monies from one locale from police to, as you mentioned, Ms. Cassandra, as you mentioned, to education, for instance. Something else Niall said. I'm just repeating what he said. Here's something else he said is one of the reasons that defunding police. One of the reasons that I agree with defunding police is because of the militaristic nature of police.
Yeah.
And this, when they first started talking about defunding, I was all for it because of how they act as if they are the military when it comes to black people protesting. They didn't act that
Mm-hmm.
way when gunmen went into the Michigan state house with their guns. They didn't act that way then. They were very professional, which lets us know that they know how to act around certain
Yeah.
people. So as it relates to
Yeah.
defund the police, I'm in total agreement. Total agreement.
And I wanted to talk
Absolutely.
about that was awesome. Thank you. I wanted to talk about the statues. Okay. Um, they said I read in my research. I can't, I read so much. I can't. I don't want to jot because it might not be factual. So anyway, but I read that while y'all want to take these statues down, why don't you take down this white Jesus? Why don't you take down this white Jesus with these blue eyes? Because that's not our history. Now, when I went to Israel, I had to. When I went to Israel, I had the pleasure of meeting Ethiopians, and
Mm.
when they had pictures up, and they had pictures, of course, not a blue-eyed Jesus, white. They had a picture of a black Jesus, um, and there were Christians. Y'all do know that there's Christians, Ethiopians, and
Absolutely.
so let's talk about that now. Before we get into that, because we know about George Washington, they had, and we learned in school that he was for blacks and he freed the slaves. Um, I when I went to take a black culture class in college, I learned totally different. Right? I heard that he had slaves. He was very mean
Yes.
to slaves. He was very disrespectful to the slaves. And do y'all remember reading about the wooden teeth?
Oh yeah,
That-
them slave teeth.
But yeah, they were from actual people.
Yeah,
They were,
right.
So
Yeah.
that's not true.
and so we want to talk about that. We want to talk about Rockefeller. Grant, um, Blue Eye Jesus. What's your take on that? I know y'all already know what my take will be. If y'all don't, I'll tell y'all later. But let's go ahead, Prophet.
Okay, so I'll start with the statues and all of that stuff. Let me just say first, my initial reaction to that, honestly, with all of these statues and everything, is I fear that there is an agenda to placate us. And that only works on people who are not really paying attention. So, what I mean is, that only represents what's in the heart of people. And people have a tendency to change the outward color of something, but not move any of the furniture that's in the house. It's like painting the house a brand new color. And then everybody thinks it's all changed, and it's really not changed at all. And so I'm saying that those statues are like the color of the house, and
Okay.
everything inside has not really changed. It hasn't moved. All the same old, terrible furniture is in there. And every time I walk inside, I stub my toes against something that is there to hurt me. And it really isn't any different at all. And so they can move these statues. They can leave them up for all I care. I understand what some people feel in terms of their need for it not to be there. But I would just say to all of them, while I understand that, and I'm sensitive to what certain icons and representations do to your emotions, at the end of the day, don't stop there. Don't think that that's enough, because that's not the issue. The issue is the hearts of the people who put it there in the first place,
Right.
who look at it every day and think it's great.
Right.
So let's not stop prior to digging down to the heart of the matter, because the heart of the matter is not the statue. Just like if you were to take the cross from around my neck, that doesn't deal with the fact that Jesus is in my heart. You can take my Bible from me, but I know so much word, you can't remove it from my heart.
Right.
That's why David said, "Thy word have I hidden in my heart that I might not sin against you." Because if it's hidden in my heart, it doesn't matter what you do with the physical object. So all of this, stress put on and onus put on the removal of physical objects is not enough. And I just want to say to everybody watching us today, let's not rejoice yet. Hold your celebration until we start to see the actions of people be different, and not just what they say, but what they do. Okay.
Amen.
And then the other thing about Black Jesus, let's just keep it real. You yourself have been there. Nobody who is indigenous of that region is white. It doesn't make any sense.
Right.
Whoa.
Get
Right.
out of here. Now,
Right.
if you want to get really technical about it, I know Quincy can follow me. Let's talk about Constantine. Okay, because we know that
Whoa.
when he came, this is when all of this white Jesus and all of this other stuff, came about. But that is not reality. And there is a reason for it. There's a reason why we have melanin and they don't. And it's okay.
It's okay.
It's not because somebody is more important than the other. You did not have to grow up in that part of the world. You would have never survived without melanin over there. So the Lord needed to give us something so that we could survive in that level of sunlight. Where you lived in Europe, very different story. Where Jesus is from, baby, nobody looks like you. Okay? So if I could just talk to them, stop it. Nobody looks like you over there. This is where he came from. And if you want to get biblical about it, it doesn't even match that. The Bible told us that his hair was like wool.
Right.
Who white has hair like wool? Hairs is
Okay.
stringy. To say nothing of his skin complexion, which was not white. That's not what the Bible said. So we know he didn't look like that. So I would just say to them, do yourself a favor and stop the madness. It would be one thing if they took a fact, something that was actually true, to try to use it against us to make us feel inferior. See, Jesus looked like me, but it's not even true. You can't use a lie to put me up under your thumb.
Right.
At least try to use something true. And that right there is not even true. You know,
Right.
I'll
This is
say
who
like
it is.
this. This is, and I'm gonna jump in this. I think we
Mhm.
all need to be educated. No, no, no. I'm not gonna say we all because a lot of us are educated. I
Yeah.
believe that they should spend a lot of money redoing this history and redoing it with truths.
Yeah.
Because it has been nothing but full of lies
Right.
from kindergarten to junior high school to high school. And then when you go to college, that's when you start learning about your Black history. And when you go and start learning about Christianity. That's a whole nother sect too. Nobody wants to deal with that, but that's a whole nother issue. I'm not talking about that right now on the show because they use religion to hold us back, to blind us, to limit us. Um, and that's just all jacked up and it's all messed up, but it's all coming to a light. Quincy, how do you feel about the white Jesus and the blue-eyed Jesus?
let me before I answer that question, because again, Al pretty much summed it up. So I'll say something about that relatively quickly. I see our friend Miss April asked a question. I want to answer it super quick, super quick. I do believe that police officers are needed. So again, I'm not for abolishing, I guess, police. I'm not for closing down police stations.
I mean,
I'm for reallocating funds.
me too.
I'm for
I'm
you
agree.
give police. I'm just throwing out a random figure. You don't give police $5 million, but then give education $500,000. I think we need to
Right.
do a better job of balancing the city budget, if you will. So that's what I mean when I personally say that we need to defund police. I'm looking at defund as a synonym for reallocate monies. So those are my
That's
thoughts
exactly what it is.
as it relates to that. As it relates to blonde hair, blue eyed Jesus, like Brother Niles said, you don't get his complexion with where he's from. The entire Historically speaking, the entire reasoning behind a blonde hair, blue eyed Jesus was to cement white supremacy into the minds of those who wasn't white. Let me go a step further with that because this is a constant conversation that I have with Black Christians. With
Mm.
black atheists and agnostics.
Okay.
Agnostics, they don't really
Mm.
know one way or the other as it relates to Christianity. And just in case someone who is Black and atheist or Black and agnostic was watching this, let me just throw this out. Again, blonde hair, blue eyed Jesus was done to hopefully cement white supremacy. But we can never, Miss Cassandra, you mentioned Ethiopia earlier. We can never deny the history of Christianity. We can never deny Africa's place in the history of Christianity. We can never
Yes,
deny
sir.
Black church fathers like Augustine, who was the first who coined the term Trinity. We can never deny Black African church fathers like Origen. We can never deny Black African church fathers like Athanasius, who was so dark and small they called him the Black Dwarf. We can never deny Black
Oh,
Africans in their role in cementing what would be the
Hello.
canon of Scripture, the canon
Yeah.
of Genesis through Revelation. We can never deny
But
the impact that African Black Christians had on Christianity. And this was in the first, second, and third century. So this was way before the transatlantic slave trade.
yes,
So to
sir.
put that
Yeah.
in layman's terms, there were Black Christians way before
Yeah.
the
Yes.
transatlantic slave trade. We didn't become Christians because of the
Thank
slave
you.
trade. Some of
Yeah.
Exactly.
us were
That's right.
already Christians.
That's right.
We acknowledge that, and we need to bring down every statue of white Jesus. Now, my stance on the statue is are a little different from you all's. I do believe that every single statue in America that highlights former slave owners or those who fought to keep a chattel slave system need to come down. Every single one of them. Now that's just my thoughts on it.
I think hi.
That's a start. Now that's a start to bring down the statues. That's a start. Go ahead.
Hi, Pastor Tripp. How are you? God bless you. Thank you for joining us. Amen. Thank you. Hold on. Let me unmute you. Hi, how are you?
I'm fine. I'm sorry. I had to counsel a little boy after church.
Okay.
He had been molested, and so it was difficult. And I'm just getting in, so it's kind of rough. I'm trying to get in and get to you all. I apologize. It's kind of hard early on Sunday evenings. I'm probably better at 4, 5, 6. But,
right. I get
go right
it.
ahead. What's the subject? What we're talking about? I heard him talking about white Jesus. What's our subject, Sandra?
Well, listen, boy, you missing some good stuff. You know, we just trying to find out why they don't like us. We just trying to find out why white people don't like us. Why the black man is so persecuted.
Let me say, it's not necessarily like it's intimidation, and it's a subconscious awareness that plays on the mind and intimidates, which leads to dislike and further hatred. When you see the black male coming from Africa, you see a strong stature of a male, masculine, muscular, able to withstand heat. And so when you look at that statue, that can be intimidating when you are appearing to be pale, appearing to be weak in stature, in comparison to it's like looking at the NFL versus Major League Baseball. You get the picture. Okay, y'all got me this evening. So when you see that, it can be rather intimidating. And the only way that you can break that down and I preached about this, it was a couple of weeks ago, about can we have a conversation? And that was the subject. And I was talking about the masculine black male and what we were told in the garden to take dominion, to dominate. That's what take dominion means. Take dominion, dominate, and subdue. And so in so doing, we all know, I was listening to the brother talk, Eden was off of the Mesopotamia over in Africa, and I don't think it's located anywhere else. At the end of the day, if we know our history and our culture, we know where it leads us to, and where it brings us from. Africa into 1619 brings us up to the day. We are a persevering people, and when a people keeps being pressed down and beat down, yet continue to rise, that's a force to be reckoned with. And when you can't break that spirit, irregardless of what you try, slavery, jail, beat, whip, kill, you can't kill us all. When you attempt to do that and a race of people still rise, something begins to say, well, if I can't beat them, I got to join them. I got to figure out how to let them get their piece of the pie, and go on and go from there. I think the fact that there's a scripture that I hear often there in the Old Testament. When the Pharaoh looked out, the scripture said there was a Pharaoh that rose up that did not know the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. And what happened was he looked and he saw the slaves had begun to multiply, and they were more in people. I mean, they had gone to multi-million as opposed to being just a few million. And so what happened was They went in as a few slaves. Well, they went down in Egypt. You know the history with Joseph, just trying to cut through the chase. But what happened was, you get the people begin to multiply, and he said, well, we got to do something to break them. First, we got to stop them from multiplying, because they're going to outnumber us. We know that we are a minority. We fell for that Planned Parenthood stuff, and we stopped having babies. My grandmama had 18. Hello.
Okay.
And at the end of the day, I come from a very large family. But what has happened is we actually have become a minority because of Planned Parenthood and what a people put into our mind, that you need to stop having children. You know, you can't feed them, you can't raise them. I don't remember my grandmama saying that her children ever went hungry. My mother had 6 of us. We never went hungry. Actually, with the 6 of us, my father managed to own 3 grocery stores, to have beef cattle, to amass land. He was a body shop mechanic, and he drove the school bus. He was a real hustler. He had a nightclub. They had a store. I mean, he was turning the corners. So, you know, you can make it work. But our mindset was, you know, stop having those babies, and the ones you got, we're gonna do this social stuff to accommodate you. But what it did was made us lazy. That's not my point. But what I'm going to say is, whenever you see a people rising to outnumber, is to cut them off. Take the black male out of the as the head of the family. We know God created man as a head. I honor black men. I love black men.
I sure do too. I sure do too, honey. We cannot live without a black man.
I prop them
They're
up.
lying when they said they can live without a black man. No, we cannot.
No,
I can't.
baby, I ain't trying to do that. I'm trying to make sure I breed enough trips.
Hold on 1 second. I can't even imagine a world without a black man. I can't.
Please don't. We're not trying to imagine it. And so
no black man at all. Oh my God. Oh,
I don't know what that would look like. It wouldn't be too good. But let me say this. So you get the black male out of the home, you destroy the mother through hustling. She gets on drugs and this, and then you break down the child. That was a trick. That was a plot from the enemy to destroy the black family. Still we rose, though, because a single black woman is equivalent to a white male, because she'll figure it out. Just look at the history of how many black women able to push. Even with, I'll give you a good example. And I'm not a real Tupac fan, but I understood it. But his mother put it in him, who he was, what he's supposed to be doing. Even with his mother getting addicted to cocaine, she was able to bring herself up out of it and keep telling him to keep pushing until he make it. And so, you know, that example, some people go, well, he had a thug life. I ain't interested in none of that. What I'm interested in, the fact is his mindset was able to rise above the circumstances that he was introduced to of no cause of his own.
And he was
when you incarcerate the black male, and the deal was they put him in jail. What did he do? He kept writing. He had a #1 record in prison. So you can't break a strong mind down, especially. And one thing I recognize, that woman taught that boy who God is. When you teach your sons who God is, and that they can be anything that they want to be, irregardless, that I always tell my sons, look, don't come here telling me nothing about somebody white blocking you. I grew up with discrimination. I was one of 3 kids in my class that was black. So I know what it is to be on top, to win a competition and have my award given to me back at the school instead of being brought on the stage with the rest of the white folks. I understand that. But what we have to be able to do is instill it to them. Don't let anybody tell you that your race and stereotype you to the point that you see where you can't have, you can't do, you can't make it, you can't this, that, and other. We have to be twice as good, sometimes triple or better. We have to keep pressing and keep God first in order to overcome everything to put in our path. Now, God created everything that's going on.
All right, Pastor Tripp. Let me do this. Let me jump in.
Go ahead, baby.
All,
Go ahead.
all y'all full. All y'all overdue. All y'all
We
pregnant.
are.
All
We
y'all
are.
pregnant.
And I just got through preaching. Isn't that awesome?
All y'all going to give birth to something. Good God Almighty. All right. Woo! Let's jump into these Quincy. Let's look at these comments. We had Laurel from last time. Go ahead and read her comment. She says something about blacks, whites think better than blacks. I don't know if I read it right.
Yeah, so
I
Laurel,
hope you didn't read that
who was
right.
on the show last week, she mentioned, I think this was in response to something Niall said earlier. I don't agree black people are more creative than white people.
Who said that?
It's a comment. They write, they comment.
She said,
Okay.
I don't agree black people are more creative than white people. I do believe white people try to have dominion over things, including their intellectual property, because they want their generative effort to create maximum return on investment.
Okay. Anybody want
That's
to answer
interesting.
that?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Because what we've always seen is the investment that they maximize is in controlling our intellectual property, not the other way around. I could rattle off easily 25 things that we've created that make the United States work. And I can't tell you 5 things that they've created that make our civilization possible. And I understand that was in response to a comment that I had made, and I'm not trying to belittle them as a people. I was just making the point of this truth that life in the United States for them would not be possible without us. Not just because of what they did in forcing us to work fields, but everything that we created to make what we do to this very day possible and make it comfortable for them to live in. That is all the results of our intellectual property, not the other way around. And I'm with Pastor. She was talking about the dominion aspect. I touched on that earlier before she got on. It is so true. Even the scripture that she brought up from Exodus, when Pharaoh basically said, "Come on, let us deal wisely with them, lest at any time, if our enemies raise up against us and there falleth out any war, they fight with our enemies against us." And so it just boils down to fear. I mean, people use whatever tactic to throw us off the mark. Absolutely. But we know the truth. You can say all day long that, if we're not more creative, then why is there no truly American art form in terms of music than what came from us? Jazz is the root of all American music. They didn't have any music.
Sure didn't.
They didn't have anything. The only thing they brought to the table that was European was classical music, and even with that, we believe that some of their real classical music patriarchy was black, which I'm not even gonna get into. But I'll just say, at least we know in America, the only truly original American music root is jazz, and everything else we hear came up out of that. And I'll just stop there because I don't want to make it seem like I'm trying to be the bad guy and say white people don't have anything to offer, because I don't talk like that, and I don't want people to get that.
You know what? And Parker, let me talk to you, Prophet, for this. I am so tired of us apologizing or worrying about what people think and what people gonna say. Because I'm gonna tell you this: we are a beautiful people, we are strong people, we are spiritual people, and we love God. And you cannot take that away from us. And I'm proud to be black. I'm proud to be nothing but black. Can white people say they're proud to be white? Can they really walk the street and say, I am proud to be white after studying all the history, all the stuff that you have put another ethnic group through? Can you really say you're proud? I really do. I walk the streets. I have my shirt on. Mama, I can't breathe. I have my mask on. Mama, I can't breathe. I have that on. And I'm looking at their faces like, Can y'all really say y'all proud of your history for what y'all have done to Black people? I'm not apologizing for it. We have good white people. Don't get me wrong.
Good. Stop yelling and explain yourself. You're very good.
That was my mom. My mom said I'm yelling too much.
You done got excited.
But anyway, go ahead. Somebody else take it.
Let me say this. And you know, it's not a matter of who is Black being more creative than white being more creative than Black. The fact of the matter is we all bring something to the table. And if we could all come together, things would be better. The fact what actually is happening now is people are realizing that we need each other. We need God and we need each other. And once we realize that and stop running around here like somebody is superior, then we'll all learn to get along in this world and do things the way God intended it to. But when you think that you are superior in knowledge, superior in creativity, then you're going to be put to shame, because I don't see how on earth anyone can be more creative than a people who has been oppressed for over 400 years or more and still rise to produce your, well, take the Peanut Man, George Washington Carver.
Yep.
Was that his name?
Yep.
Whatever his name was, let's just take him. How do you take a peanut and make everything you need in a household? Huh? Everything to this day, we still creating something with it. Now, that's creativity at its highest form. We didn't come up with opening up the windows, but the scripture was there. I opened up the windows of heaven and Bill Gates, he opened up windows and here we are. We live talking here today and I see 1, 2, 3, 4 windows open. All well and good. But the fact of the matter is we are all creative. We all have creative abilities. If you didn't know it, then just read the scripture. It taught in Song of Solomon. Well, Proverbs. Let's go. Proverbs in itself tells us that within us we have the ability to create witty inventions. Well, what that says is, if I get a hold of me enough sense and wisdom to sit down, be quiet, and stop the chase between everything else going on in life, I can do something that'll mean something and that'll blow up big. See, what happens is the reason we have not been as creative as we were when we were trying to figure out how to pick cotton without using our hands. Let's see, can we go ahead and create a gin, a spinning wheel? Let's make all of that. Now, we know who created all of that. Them inventions. The Black folk did because it was making label. Then they said, these folks done figured out how to get this cotton picked, how to get this cotton gin, how to get a spinning wheel to make these cotton clothes. Come on. But what we did was got away from the once we saw a taste of success and moving forward, we got away from the creative ideology that I can create and invent and do, because we were trying to get rich one way. Creating and inventing patents and inventions are hard to do. We got to have some money for that. So what they do, half this stuff out here been stolen from us anyway, from our ideas. We just didn't know how to patent it. We didn't know how to trademark it. And we didn't know how to manufacture and produce it. Absolutely. It wasn't the fact that we were not creative, because the creator, we were created in the image of God who created this world. And so creativity is within our souls and beings. We just don't have the opportunities. So we didn't
have the money. And not only that book called Uncle Tom, that they said that was the second selling book besides the Bible. But they said that white lady was not the true author of that Bible. The Black man was.
Exactly.
So I'm going to tell you, they stole a lot of stuff from us because we wasn't privileged.
Thank you. Didn't have the ability, didn't have the resources. Now we have the ability and resources, and what we have to do is redeem the time. I truly believe that, you know, what we have to do. You know, one thing I loved about growing up, and I'll say, anybody know Pastor Tripp, you'll hear me say that I felt some kind of way about integration, because in our school we had the arts. I don't know, you know, how many of you've had opportunity to go to an all-white school, because I ended up at one with just a few blacks. And then I was at the school that I ended up going back to where I came from, which was all black school, all African American. Let me say this. We were taught the arts because the teachers came from historically black colleges, and they were taught the arts. We were taught how to sing. We were taught how, we had the baddest band on this side of Georgia.
That's right. That's right. Talk about it.
And what I'm saying is, we knew how to act. We had chapel. We had to put on our plays as seniors. We took our play on the road. We were taught this stuff. But when we integrated, we had stuff, that stuff, we didn't have chapel on Fridays. Everything changed. And we got away from the arts. We got away from our culture. See, it ain't about people. Jesus. It's about a culture. We have a culture that we have to preserve. We have to tell our kids about. I have to tell my daughter, my granddaughter, how to shell cone and cut it off the cob and fry it with some fat back. This is a culture. How to make a biscuit. This is a culture. This ain't nothing that comes from being mingled with white folk. They want our biscuits. Them in the can done been blowed up, but they come from us.
Blowed up.
That was a trip. But I'm just saying,
Jesus,
you know, opportunity, certain things, this is it. Certain things may be good for us as a people, but it's not expedient as a people. I don't ever want my kids to lose who they are and what their culture is. I want them to come back and see and realize what it is to have a field. I just passed by my father's land he gave us, and the dirt is turned over. We're ready. I just became a grower in Georgia for hemp, and I'm ready to make things happen. I have my brothers turning the track, our wheels are turning. I say, Lord, you let our father buy this land. And not only did you let our father buy this land, but now, after fighting as a black farmer, I fought and fought and fought to be able to farm, couldn't get a farmer. Here we are, 40 years later, and bam, black folk finna realize how to make some money, honey, farming. Because we couldn't do it. We couldn't live off the farm. We gave up our land, ran to the city. We ran to the city because we got tired of working the fields. I ain't finna be tired of looking at the fields, though, because we finna figure it out. The thing about us is we need to know our culture, get back to our culture. Don't hate the South. Don't hate the North. It all served its purpose. All this Confederate stuff, away with it. We had a Black Lives Matter thing in Greene County yesterday. I didn't get a chance to participate, but it was so wonderful. It was wonderful to see people standing there desiring that the Confederate statue come down. Mm-hmm. I don't know how, who, what, when, or where, but I think that the fact of the matter is, yes, it's history. I see what you're talking about, but what is the wrong side of history? It was something that the war was fought to keep slaves intact in the fields and keep making the same old folk rich. Well, it's a new day in America. And until we realize who we are and continue to rise, the fear is on our president. Our president is afraid. He knows, number one, he's not going to be reelected. He knows that he's been shot in the foot. He knows that we love money, so that stimulus with his name in that letter, it excites a few people, but it's never going to excite enough black folk to go to the poll and to vote for his silly self. Right. But at the end of the day,
I love it. I know that's right.
We have to rise in our mindset, we can come out, but we cannot be enslaved to the mind that we still don't have what it takes to do something and be something in America. We do. We have more now than we've ever had. We have access, and we are on the verge of a breakthrough with this Black Lives Matter movement. And if we see, last week, COVID-19 took over the Black Lives Matter movement. And I'm going, we ain't hearing nothing. We ain't hearing nothing. What we doing? We got to keep our foot on the gas pedal.
Yes, ma'am.
We got to still stay crunk. We can't be satisfied with one bill. Georgia didn't even have a hate bill. We got to sign off on yesterday. So we finally have a hate crime bill because of this boy being killed over there in Atlanta, Rayshard Brooks. So at the end of the day, how many folk got to get killed for you to recognize that somebody, then they holler all lives matter. All lives do matter. But the point of the matter is we just trying to get you to see that in addition to all lives matter, make sure that the Black folks is included because we haven't been included.
Okay, and let me jump in. I'm going to jump in real quick. Parker, where is the church going from here? Where's the church going from here? Where is the church going from here? What is God saying to the church?
Well, first of all, the church is not monolithic. The fact that we have in every regional area more churches per capita than ever in life shows you that everybody, kind of has a different theology, different take on what they believe God is saying. But I will say this much. I know that church as we've known it will never be the same again. And my heart goes out to the people who were not prepared, who did not anticipate this paradigm shift that has forced us to consider technology as a viable means by which to communicate with one another and to communicate the gospel, to share our monies, to do work in our communities, to do what it is to enact ministry in the world. It's so much more, and it has been so much more than us just meeting at our scheduled times of service. And I believe the Lord allowed this plague to come upon us for many reasons. One of them for the church is to force us to come together and help one another in a way that we were really not willing to before. And I really pray that this paradigm shift forces people to embrace the newness of life that God is really trying to get us to embrace. And just, all packing up together and having church services is not really ministry. That's just not going to cut it anymore. What we've done before is over. And we have to be willing to hear what God is saying for us. Because mind you, you can't say that God is saying any one thing that will be applicable to everybody in every city and every church, because everybody's assignment is going to be different. Everybody has a different assignment. I'm not called to do here in Dallas the same thing Pastor Tripp is doing, and vice versa. Just like my voice is not custom tailored to fit the people that she is assigned to reach with her voice, and so on. This thing goes. So the assignments will differ, but I do know that what God is saying to us in terms of moving forward is that we must have open hearts to move forward in a way that will embrace the modernness of life today. Because there are some people that are just not going to come to church. And we have to be okay with that. Now, let me just give you this one scripture, because we like to throw this in there all the time. Forsake not the assembling and all of that kind of stuff. Okay, so I'm with you on that, but let's consider that from a different vantage point. And Pastor Tripp can police me. Elder Hood can police me if I'm wrong, but consider assembly as more than just meeting together in one place. Consider when you get a box of something brand new and it comes in pieces and you need to take it home and you need to assemble it. Consider the model of the body of Christ. And when he's talking about divine assembly, he's talking about forsake not to assemble your peace. The functionality of your peace, whatever you are, whatever you're assigned to do, you have something to offer. You have something to do in the body of Christ. So there is a possibility that people could be forsaking, not necessarily not just going to church, but forsaking your putting together your connectivity to the body of Christ to perform the thing that you were assigned to do before the foundation of the world, when God decided to send you into the world at this time. So I think one of the things that, since we don't have church anymore, God is really confronting us and forcing us to consider how many pieces have not been assembled that we can still connect to without a church service. How many ill-functioning parts of the body have not been functioning because the model didn't work for them? What if we reform the model? Because if we really tell the truth, in the early church, there was no such thing as a Sunday morning service. There was no such thing as a Wednesday night Bible study. We did all of that years and years and years later. All of this stuff we know the church to be today that we call God, we did it. Now, mind you, the church grew exponentially later, and it required, because there were so many people, that they needed a centralized location to meet. And you couldn't just go, like the scripture said, from house to house anymore. The church had grown too large. I can understand why organization was necessary. But let's not deify that to turn these church buildings and what we do in them as the sum total of what it is to be godly or to be a Christian or to be the church. We are so much more. And I think one of the reasons the Lord has taken certain aspects of what we call the church away is to help us reform our thinking and help us to reconsider what it means to be the church and how big he really is. And he is bigger than our buildings and our programs and our scheduled times of service. And I believe going forward, what God is saying is revisit who I am.
Yep.
And I'm bigger than what you've been calling me. I'm bigger than what you've said I am. I'm bigger than how you've been representing me to the world. Come back to the beginning and let me reform your definition of who I am. Because when you get that straight, then I can reform your definition of who you are and who you can be. Last thing I'll say on that is it's like any father. Pastor Tripp touched on this lightly a little bit earlier in her commentary, and it just blessed my heart. She was talking about identity and how her father made his way in the world and all of that kind of stuff and left them a legacy. And what jumped out in my spirit was the Lord was speaking to me as she was talking about identity and the fact that that should come from a father. And she was making a point that in the absence of fathers, so many mothers had to step up and do it, and they did do it. But this past Father's Day, the Lord was really speaking to me about the fact that identity should be poured out from a father. And back to this black-white thing, I really believe the agenda behind that was to remove the voice from the son that was supposed to tell him who he was and enforce his identity, really imprint on him and make him understand not only who it was, but what his purpose is in the world. So back to what you were saying, Sister Aarons, about going forward and what God is saying to us. I really think he is trying to get us in a position to reinforce our identity in him and for him, aside from the work of the ministry that happens in the building. Because we have minimized God and minimized our ministry to just what happens with one another and what happens in the building. And I think he's ready now to explode all of that and really unleash the body of Christ to the world. And the only way to do that is to take away our comfort. And our church buildings were our comfort. You gonna walk the streets if you ain't got no home to go to. Homeless people learn the whole city. They go everywhere.
Yep.
Wherever there's something available for them, they going all over the city. Many of us stayed on our corner because we didn't have to go nowhere. Now we ain't got no choice. And God is saying, I have empowered you to do far more than you've been doing. And ministry is greater than just your little church. And I'll stop there. Thank you.
Beautiful. That's it right there. That's it. That's it.
Yep.
That is absolutely it.
Yep.
Go ahead, Brother Q, and chime in on that.
Let me just chime in real quick. I believe God has clearly shown the church leave the building and show people what ministry is about. Leave the building and show people who I am. Like you said, we're so comfortable inside the building. We're not doing a lot of ministry outside the building. Now we are forced to show people what God expects of his church. That's the bottom line for me. Get out the building and work. Something else that, though, as it relates to that, is not just work, but God wants he wants his church to show the unchurched how we love one another.
Thank you.
That be it black, white, Mexican, Asian, or any other ethnicity. You show them how you love one another. Because that will be your strongest witness. Not how well you teach, not how well you preach, not how many degrees on your wall, but how are you loving other people in the family of Christians. And I think we need to do better in that. So that's where I'm at with it.
Pastor Tripp, before you jump in there, I don't know. Me and Quincy met about 2 years ago at Dr. Evans' church. And Parker, we just met. You my new friend. Pastor Lily's my new. I adopted her as my spiritual mom. But I want to say this because, and this is to give God the glory. I came from New York. And I was born and raised in New York, and somebody sent me a message, and they said they had a problem with me saying that Black people were weak. And I didn't say Black people were weak. What I was saying is that the other people and other races don't have respect for us because we don't have nothing to show for. Meaning that, you remember, like, we don't have anything. When we went back in the days, we had our own schools, we had our own lands. Anyway, make a long story short, I went to this church called A. Allen. I don't know if you heard of Floyd Flake, Reverend Floyd Flake, awesome man of God. I had the privilege of sitting under him, and he was a congressman, and what he did was he built a whole community. If you go to Queens, you go to Jamaica, you study him up. This is factual. He had his own bank. He had his own nursing home. He had his own schools. He had elementary schools. He had junior high schools. He had a whole community for Black people. And what I was saying is that we need to take our resources and come together and have our own, like Pastor Tripp was saying, build our own community. This is how we get respect. This is how we gain, respect from other communities. But we don't have anything to show for it. Another thing, Pastor Tripp, I want to say this. When I came from New York to Ohio, I started a ministry called Take It to the Highways and Byways. Take it to the streets. It was phenomenal. But I want you to know that wasn't popular back then. I was heavily persecuted because we took it out to the rejected. We took it out to the outcasts. We took it out to those that were unlovable, those who were not received in the church. We went hands-on ministry. Now, today, it's popular. It wasn't popular in my day. I was persecuted. I was blackballed. It was like, who's this lady coming from New York thinking she gonna take it to the streets or take it to the hood? And I was not received. But now it's a popular ministry. I'm not bitter and I'm not angry, but that's God. This is God. He's trying to get the people attention because they wasn't taking it to the streets. Now let me tell you this. I saw something about church. What's that? Gas on. Prophet Khan did something.
Right,
He said about what is it? Well, church on gas. Church. God on gas.
Something I saw that too. It was something with God with gas or gas
God
on God.
Gas. Yeah, God on gas.
Yeah.
That was a beautiful thing. But let me tell you what broke my heart out of that video. It broke my heart because there was another pastor there, and I empathized with her and I sympathized with her, and she began crying in the video. I don't know the pastor's name, but she began crying, and she said, "I just can't believe. She was a pastor. That these people are hurting out here. I can't believe that there's so much hurt going on here. I can't believe that it's a need here. And I'm saying to myself, and you a pastor?
And you go.
Like, how do you not know that there are needs like this? How do you not know that children are hungry? How do you not know that children go without food? How do you not know that children being abused and molested? How do you not know that people don't have money to pay their gas, their electric, and their rent? How do you not know that people are struggling with depression? And how do you, as a pastor, don't know that? You know why? Because we're too selfish, we're too busy, we're too big to intermingle with the people in the congregants. We're too busy to get to know the needs of the people. We preach our little 30-minute sermon, and then we want to go out the back door. That is sad. Now that's sad. That's some sad stuff right there. That hurt my heart. Now I understand. I said, Lord, please. I understand about empathy and sympathy. But how in the world can you talk about you a pastor and don't know the needs of the people?
I'm wrong with that picture.
Go ahead, Pastor Trinity.
It's clearly something wrong with that picture. I do ministry in one of the poorest counties in the state of Georgia. However, it is the largest land per square mile county in the state of Georgia. I grew up. This is Hancock County. If you Google Hancock County, you'll see the move. One of the counties that had the first Black probate judge, that had the first all-Black county commission, first all-Black this, that, and the other. And what happened was they got blackballed for having all-Black this, all-Black, first Black superintendent in the United States of America. And this particular county, I became pastor 20 years ago at this church, which is my home church, my mother's church, and it's an apostolic church. And what happened was the church 7 years ago, I saw in a vision things coming, and God prepared me. I immediately installed the Givelify, got Givelify out to all members. We were on television for years. I did a television broadcast through the Now Network, but I went to the Now Network, for those of you who know Pastor Burns out of South Carolina, and the Now Network. It's a pretty large network. It reaches quite a few people. I was on there for years. And then I decided to come off because Facebook was moving. And so we were doing our services live on Facebook. So when this COVID-19 occurred, we were already prepared to be away from behind the wall.
Good.
Excellent.
That's 6 days a week. Every day at 12 o'clock, we have a prayer line that anybody in this nation can join. In addition to that, our Bible study is on the prayer line. Our services, like I said, we go live on Facebook. But where do we go from here? I've been doing pull-up church for 2 months. And I'm going to tell you, I have people from all around because the churches are closed. But our church is structured where it sits back and you can pull in the driveway in a U shape. And our platform, for those, and Sandra, you've probably seen it, how I'm on the platform of the porch, but then the cars are just all around. And they pull up, they don't have to get out for anything. Everything is done right there off the porch. I preach starting at 11:30, I'm finished. We feed. We have a food bank for Hancock County. We've been feeding the people there in Hancock County. We've been going out, making sure, and we do it with social distance. They drive up and the food put in their car, no questions asked. They go on about their business. It works because we understand, and now people see ministry and love in action. Just like the brother just said, you got to show love. The church now has to be able to incorporate love because it's through love and kindness. People say love and kindness have I drawn thee. And if you don't show love to a people, you're never going to be able to win souls. You're never going to be able to, the average pastors church pews be full. I'm not. Walls. Ministry.
Her phone is messing up.
get out.
Pastor Tripp, your phone is going in and out. You're in the wrong location. You're gonna have to move. Yeah, you're in the wrong location. Go back where you was, because we can't hear you. Go ahead, Quincy. Let her get a mic ready. Go ahead.
Yeah, that's a good thing that she was prepared, and I think
Yeah.
technology. That's how I make my money with the use of technology. I think technology is a major gift to the body of Christ. It's not all bad like some people will suggest. It's all bad if you use it in a negative way.
Okay.
Especially for smaller churches. I mean, everyone now can have a national ministry, and you never know what your voice will do for someone else across the globe because of modern technology. So that's called forward thinking. A concern I have with us
Can you
sometimes.
can you put music on my background?
I will have to look into it.
Okay,
I think because I'm not real familiar with StreamYard, but I can figure it out.
Okay, I'm quite sure you can. So, go ahead and give us your closing remarks. It seems like they jumped off, and we'll go ahead. Yeah.
Yeah, as far as closing remarks, again, thank you so much for the opportunity to speak to a much needed situation, and then to speak to it from a biblical perspective.
Good. We need it, Pastor Tripp. That's right. That's right. We need it, Pastor Tripp. That's why I said we need to be held accountable. So that because we're Christians and we got to line up with the word.
Yeah, that should be our goal. Most definitely, most definitely. So I just appreciate the opportunity. I appreciate looking at things from a biblical perspective, and hopefully someone will see these conversations and make the change, starting with them where they are. That's my personal challenge for me, because I've had some emotions stirred up in me over some things that has occurred nationally over the past few weeks that I don't normally have. So I'm trying to do better individually, and then have an impact, outside of my home. So I really do appreciate the opportunity to speak with you.
Oh, it's a blessing that y'all joined in. Prophet Parker, go ahead and give me your closing remarks and I would like you to talk about this, that all Black people are not the same. Right. All Black people are not thugs. Not all Black people are ignorant. Not all Black people are stupid. And please don't look at all of us as if we are the same, because we're not.
Right.
I only heard some of that because the signal was going in and out. And I just heard you say closing remarks and then went out all the same. Could you say that once more, please?
Touch on we're not the same. Like they think we all thugs, and they think we are all criminal minded, and they think Black people are all gangbangers. This will be another time that we have to talk about this. But Parker, I went down to the hood yesterday, right? And when I was driving back about 26 years ago, when I got here in Ohio, this place was like really, really beautiful. It was one of those type of places where they have houses and I'm from apartment buildings. I'm from New York. And so it was just a really beautiful, Black people were living really, really nice, right? Now, 26 years later, I'm going back around the same hood where my church used to be. I used to pastor with my husband. And it's horrible. The houses are boarded up. Windows are knocked out.
Wow.
It's not kept. Fires, burned up. When I tell you this was I used to say, Lord, if I wish I could have everybody from New York come here, because it was just that beautiful. We can't, and I don't mean no harm, and I'm Black. We cannot blame white people for the way we live now. Now, and I'm gonna tell you this: I was a single mom. I was on welfare. I was on Section 8, and I made it work. I lived in the hood, but when you came in my house, it was beautiful and it was clean. I might have not had all the up to date furniture or nothing like that. You know what I'm saying? Like I had a little cheap furniture and stuff like that, what I can afford as a single mom. But it was nice and it was clean. I think as black people, we all got to do better. Now I'm gonna tell you this: when I had taken to the highways and byways, there was more white people that supported me than my own
Yeah.
people, and I think we all got to do better. So yeah, go ahead. I'm quite sure you heard that. You
Uh,
heard that.
I heard most of it. Yeah, it was still kind of going in and out. If you have any trouble hearing me, please let me know. Let me
Okay.
say first, we're closing now. Thank you for having me once again. It's been a pleasure to speak to you as well as Brother Quincy Hood, Elder Quincy Hood. Good
Quincy,
to hear and speak to both. And also Pastor Tripp. It was good to see her for the limited time that we had her with us. To what you were saying about the way Black people live, and I'm going to try to address all of it as the Holy Spirit brings things back to my remembrance. But I think the way a lot of people live, particularly not taking care of their own place and all of that, has a lot to do with self-loathing,
right.
and a lot of that is rooted in our history with whites, and the absence of the right perspective from our own people, and having it really inculcated in us, really instilled in us that we're worthwhile, that taking care of your own neighborhood and taking care of your own home speaks more about you than you realize. And I think if children are taught that, not just by words, but by example, that would have a lot to do with the way they regard their own homes and their own neighborhoods and their own communities. We wouldn't see, cups on the side of the street and McDonald bags on the side of the road and all that type of nonsense. I didn't grow up in that kind of era. I was born in the late 70s, and Black people had a far greater sense of pride in that time, and we took care of things very differently back then. But I will say there's also something to be said about that concerning the fact that, and I heard the comedian Chris Rock say this, and it's really true, that money means options. And I
Yeah.
want to expand on what he meant by that. Money gives us the options to express the truth of who we really are. You don't really find out who somebody is until you give them enough money to buy the things that will help them to express their true identity. You'll never know how many gold teeth somebody put in their mouth so they have enough money to buy them.
Yep.
You, you'll never know the colors of suits somebody would really love so they can buy what they really want. You'll never be able to tell the kind of attitude that someone would express to you until they don't need you anymore,
Yep.
you know, until they're in a socioeconomic status to really truly be who they are. Some people like to say that, when so and so got famous, they changed, or when so no no no, they didn't change. They were always that. They just didn't have the opportunity to be free from your prying eyes and to come out from under your paycheck and come out from under what you thought, and they could leave New York and go live in Hollywood and do what they want to do, or go live down in Atlanta and do what they really want to do and have their own money and be rich and not need your yay or nay anymore.
Right.
That's when you really find out who people really are. And so I think oftentimes people don't have self love, so they drown in self loathing. They have no money. They're on a very low socioeconomic status. And so, no, the way they treat their home and their community is not going to mean anything to them because they don't think they're worth anything.
Mhm.
People give themselves so freely to drugs, not because it's just cool to do. Nobody thinks drugs are cool. These people get stuck in a lifestyle like that because they're looking for escape from a life they hate, even if that escape is temporary. And we know the effects of drugs is only temporary because we know that when it wears off, you're going to come crashing back down to
Yep.
your horrifying reality. And then what do? They go seek to get high again because they're running. They want to get away from reality, which tells you they don't love it. They don't want to live like that. Nobody throws trash on the ground because they think it looks wonderful where they threw it. They do it because they don't think it means anything. They don't care. You can't care for me and love me if you don't love or care for yourself. So back to our original topic about, white supremacy and hate, and I'm going to stop here. And that is, I firmly believe in my soul to the core of my being that the people that are the most hateful are the most hateful because they hate themselves. It is self-loathing that makes it possible for you to hate me and not know me. For you to hate me just by the sight of me and want to call me names and, try to subjugate me and put me up under your foot. If the only thing that makes you feel better about yourself is to put me up under your foot, that's a problem with you, not me. So the Lord letting me see that, help me not to take this stuff personally anymore. I don't take it personally because I know that that's their personal issue. They hate themselves. So the remedy for me is to project enough love around me and to be Christ-like enough in my own context and in the sphere of my influence that I can show people what it looks like to be unmoved by what other people do, as much as is within my power to give myself to God for him to do through me. Because I promise you, just like Brother Quincy said, I get upset too. Just today, you can watch too many of these videos and really get angry.
Really,
And I really
I
had
had
a
to
bad
pull back.
attitude earlier today.
I had to pull back. I had to pull back. I was just like, I can't take no more. Now, I'm just COVID. That COVID-19, y'all, is still, it ain't going nowhere. Y'all be safe.
Yeah,
Y'all be cool out there. They just said Delta Airlines, 8,500 of their employees tested positive with the COVID, and 10 of them died. So be careful out there. And I think this is another trick that just wipe off Black America. And Hood, I'm gonna just tell you about this. Now I want y'all can both listen to this. Ain't it funny when Tyler Perry just got that big old studio? Remember?
He got huge studio.
He made history. This has never a Black-owned studio, right? Don't have to go to California and all that. Listen to this. Now, all of a sudden, this COVID-19 comes. It's just so weird. Here, this Black man got this land, got this COVID, and then all of a sudden, he can't really do. What can you do? Because you can't go to the movies.
Right.
You feel what I'm saying? It's just an attack after an attack with these Black men. You know what I'm saying? It's just an attack. It's just.
It's interesting to say the least. It was a study done. I got it written down here, and the study was actually done last year in 2019, but the stats from the study was from 2011 to 2017. And the first part of this is what we already know is that Black men in particular, Black people and Black men in particular were pulled over a disproportionately amount of time in comparison to white people. And ultimately they were pulled over when they hadn't done anything wrong. Secondly, they were more likely to be searched than their white counterparts, even though the study showed that whenever the white people were pulled over, they were more likely to have illegal substances or illegal weapons on them. This is the trip out part of this, though. At night, whenever it turned dark, the statistics went down from Black men getting pulled over a lot. The statistics went down from 5 to 10%. So it suggested that when they see us driving, they just pull us over for whatever reason. Obviously, at night, you can no longer see. It's harder to see who's driving a particular car. But and this is something that we know, but it's an answer to people who say, well, they used to go on, it doesn't go on anymore. Well, this was done in 2019, last year. So they're still up to the same tactics as it relates to Black people and Black men in particular. It's just Just so
We
strange.
could go. Let us go, because we could go all.
Okay, cool.
Bye, bye, bye.
All right.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, bye-bye.
Bye bye.